Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here today because we're about to embark on a fascinating, completely eye-opening journey into the neuroscience of what screens are actually doing to our minds. I mean, we all use social media, right? But today, we're popping the hood. We're going to dive into the latest research to visualize exactly why social media is slowly destroying your brain and how the constant scroll is quite literally rewiring our fundamental cognitive architecture. But first, I've got a quick question for you. Have you ever experienced phantom scrolling? You know the exact feeling. You're reading a physical book or maybe a printed document, and you suddenly catch your thumb twitching, instinctively trying to swipe up on the paper. It sounds totally crazy, right? But it's actually a documented phenomenon, and it perfectly highlights the reality of digital fatigue and just how deeply these devices have trained our physical reflexes. And listen, this conditioning is happening at a massive scale. Consider this pretty jarring statistic. The average Gen Z user right now spends 2.5 hours every single day consuming ultra-short video content. We are talking about platforms where the average shot length is literally less than 2 seconds. That is 2.5 hours of rapid-fire microstimuli just constantly bombarding the brain without a single natural stopping cue. So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the attention economy. Second, the reward system. Third, digital amnesia. Fourth, rewiring your brain. Fifth, the mental health toll. And finally, cognitive health. Okay, let's dive into section 1, the attention economy problem and fragmented focus. You see, our modern digital behaviors, like constantly multitasking between apps, are actually completely at odds with how our brains are wired to operate. To understand why, we really have to look at the switching cost. Cognitive science tells us our brains are absolutely not optimized for multitasking. When you're focused on working and you glance at a social media notification, even for just 2 seconds, your brain undergoes this massive reorientation process. You don't just magically pick up right where you left off. The switching cost is the measurable cognitive delay, and that extra mental effort it takes to reestablish your concentration. Basically, we are trading deep work, that calm, creative, prolonged state of uninterrupted focus where our absolute best problem solving happens, for what's known as continuous partial attention. That's a frantic, mentally fatiguing state driven by our modern culture of immediacy. When you exist in continuous partial attention, you never fully immerse in complex tasks, which leads to massive drops in your quality and output. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact pipeline of that cognitive degradation. We start at the top with social media platforms pushing frequent notifications and immediate rewards. That triggers the brain's reward system, essentially demanding task switching. That task switching then leads straight to fragmented focus and mental fatigue, which ultimately results in a reduced attention span, impaired learning, and decreased productivity. It is a direct line from app design to cognitive fatigue. Moving right along to section 2, hijacking the reward system and the science of the scroll. Let's zoom in microscopically here to the dopamine loops. The absolute secret weapon of social media is variable reinforcement. Think of a slot machine. If you won every single time you pulled the lever, it would actually get pretty boring, right? But because the delivery of likes, comments, and fresh content is completely unpredictable, it creates this highly addictive dopamine feedback loop. Dopamine is obviously linked to pleasure and motivation, and this sporadic reinforcement pushes us to compulsively prioritize short-term digital rewards over our actual long-term goals. Let's trace how this design translates to real-world behavior. Social media uses those dopamine rewards, algorithm curation, and bite-sized content to trigger instant gratification and surface-level thinking. Notice where all these pathways converge? Impulsive decisions. And this is especially critical for younger users, mainly because the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for self-control, judgment, and critical thinking, isn't even fully developed until around age 21. Which brings us to section 3, digital amnesia and the Google effect. This constant surface-level processing naturally bleeds into how we learn and remember things. Digital amnesia is exactly what happens when our heavy reliance on digital archives diminishes our natural memory recall. We're so used to documenting every single moment for social validation, snapping a picture instead of actually immersing in the experience, that we disrupt our brain's natural memory consolidation. In fact, research shows that after a session of watching ultra-short, highly stimulating videos like Reels, the coherence of theta waves in the brain, which are vital for the deep encoding of memory, can drop by a staggering 18%. No way, right? Now, what's really interesting here are the dual pathways causing this amnesia. On one side, you have the fear of missing out, or FOMO. On the other side, you've got constant algorithmic updates. Both of these forces force our attention to divide. That divided attention creates literal brain clutter. Your working memory is drained to the max, meaning you can't properly move information into long-term storage, which results in impaired memory formation for both hard facts and authentic real-life experiences. Next up, Section 4, rewiring your brain and the physical changes. Okay, we need to raise the stakes here. We aren't just talking about bad habits anymore. We are talking about structural health issues. Prolonged exposure to these digital stressors literally alters brain volume. Studies have objectively found decreased gray matter in the anterior cingulate cortex, which is absolutely crucial for emotional regulation and decision-making. We also see impacted functioning in the amygdala, your brain's emotional center, and altered connectivity in the default mode network, which is the system that handles deep thinking and introspection. These aren't just vague psychological concepts. These are objective physical reductions in the exact regions responsible for your executive functions and impulse control. Let's look at the bigger picture in Section 5, the mental health toll and overstimulation. When you combine a degraded attention span, impulsive decision-making, and diminished emotional regulation, well, you get a perfect storm. Notice how platform usage splits into three main stressors here: social comparison leading to totally unrealistic standards, addictive design causing sleep disturbances, and online harassment manifesting as doom scrolling. All of these distinct pathways converge into massive mental health impacts, objectively culminating in heightened rates of anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. But there is incredibly good news. Section 6, reclaiming your cognitive health and the solution. Look, I know all this neuroscience sounds really heavy, but the human brain has an absolutely astonishing ability to heal itself. We have the agency to fix this. Here are 3 practical, evidence-based mitigation strategies you can literally start today. First, implement structured screen breaks. Try out the Pomodoro technique to actively train your brain for sustained focus. Second, engage in offline exercises, like reading a physical book or journaling, to strengthen your natural memory without digital reinforcement. And third, intentionally curate your feeds. Disable those non-essential notifications and aggressively unfollow any content that sparks negative social comparison for you. And hey, if you need a little extra motivation to turn on that do not disturb mode, keep this number in mind: 23. Studies have shown it takes exactly 23 minutes for your brain to regain full, deep focus after just a single digital interruption. Every single notification is a 23-minute tax on your true cognitive potential. Let's move to the timeline and see how this all builds into a genuinely powerful solution: the 3-day digital detox. Research shows that giving your phone a 72-hour break has profound effects. In the first 24 hours, you finally break that constant dopamine hit cycle. By 48 hours, those overstimulated neural pathways get a much-needed chance to rest. And by 72 hours, participants report noticeable, measurable drops in their stress and anxiety, while their capacity for sustained attention and creativity really begins to flourish again. So, the crucial point here is captured beautifully by this quote from Dr. Heidi Allison Bender. She says, "Neuroplasticity means that the brain has the ability to evolve and change over time based on whatever has happened to it in the past. When neurons are pruned, it literally leaves room for new connections. That means those structural brain changes and attention deficits, they are not a permanent life sentence, at least not if we actively choose to change our daily digital habits." So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on today. What is your screen time currently wiring your brain to do? Every swipe, every scroll, and every tap is physically molding the architecture of your mind. But remember, you have the power to control that architecture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I really hope you feel completely empowered to take back your focus.